every single person I know who's ever become very, very good at game, their game starts out maybe similar, but at a certain point, their game becomes very different. They make their game their own, right? They make themselves, they have their own style, right? I've known guys who are like world class at game who they only want to sleep with the absolute hottest girls, and they don't care how many. And they have a very long-term plan where they're building huge social circles, infrastructures, and things like that. And they sleep with maybe 10 girls a year, right? Which to some of you sounds like a lot. But to someone who's world-class in game, that's not a lot, right? But the girls they sleep with are like their exact type, right? And oftentimes they're even getting into relationships with them, and they're very happy. There are other guys who are world-class in game, and they like to have a lot of sex, right? And so they have a game style where they go out and they take a girl home almost every single night. And some of those girls, I look at them and I'm like, why the fuck did you even talk to that girl in the first place? But that's what makes them happy. And so they have a style where they're having tons and tons and tons of sex, and that's what they've decided to do. Other guys have a style where they want to get all the shit tests out of the way in the first like 2 minutes of the set. They just go in there just as polarizing as possible, like get all the shit out of the way, and then if the girl lasts more than 3 minutes, she must really like them, and then the rest of the set is theoretically easier. But their percentage of the percentage of how many girls they approach to how many they form a relationship with is quite low because they're being so polarizing right up front. Other guys want their approach to success ratio to be higher, and so they go with a much more like kind of slow burn type of a game style where they're not hitting on the girl overtly right away. They're building a lot of value, and they eventually get around to it. But with that style, you might end up spending the entire evening with a girl and find out later her logistics aren't good, she can't go home with you, or you end up building too much of a connection and don't end up taking anyone home that night, whatever, right? And so there's pros and cons of all these different styles. And every single person that does game, they have their own particulars as they get better and better and better, right? And so if you take advice from somebody about game and it doesn't apply to what you want in game, you may be trying to make something work that isn't meant to work. You may be putting a round peg in a square hole. All right? Here's a question for you guys. I'll poll the room. You have two venues you can go to. One is a quiet, classy lounge where it's easy to talk to girls. Then there is a loud nightclub if I can say the word nightclub, loud nightclub where everybody's like grinding together and dancing. It's like nice, like hot and sweaty, right? Which one do you think is better for game? Raise your hands if you think the quiet lounge where we can talk to girls is better for game. Cool. All right, now raise your hand if you think the loud nightclub is better for game. Okay. Almost nobody thinks the loud nightclub is better for game. And I would actually agree, and I'll tell you why I actually agree afterwards. But here's a second question for you. Do you think more girls are getting laid from the loud nightclub or from that quiet lounge? Yeah. Right, and so you guys are aware of both those things, but that paradox doesn't bother you somehow. You're not troubled by that paradox. The fact that the place is so much easier for game is the place that nobody's getting laid from, or not nobody, but fewer people are getting laid from. Very interesting to think about. So what's going on there? Why is that the case? Well, it's because of what you're thinking of as game, right? If you think of game as a collection of like verbal techniques and things you say and that, then it's harder to apply that structure in that sweaty dance club, for sure, right? And it is harder to have a decent, nice interaction that goes well, maybe in that dance club. However, an interaction that goes well in that dance club is likely to escalate physically, right? And a certain amount of girls in dancing with a lot of guys throughout the night are getting turned on and are getting into a state of mind where going home with a guy is a possibility, right? Also, the demographic that's going to that loud dance club might be different and might be more promiscuous overall than what's going to that lounge, right? So there are different factors involved here. For me to get laid, I still would rather go to that lounge. And here's why. Number one, I suck at dancing. It's valid. I'm not a good dancer. And so verbally, put me one-on-one against almost any guy, I'm going to crush him. On a dance floor, put me one-on-one against any guy. There are a lot of guys that are better dancers than me and know how to do that. I can do the sexual part of dancing. I can do that, which, by the way, in your US, I fucking hate Europe and the UK for that compared to the US. Because in the US, like grinding and getting physical is much more of a thing. In especially Europe and UK to some extent, it's not as much of a thing, which really sucks because the part of dancing I'm good at, I'm not even allowed to do as much. The point is, it's not an area where I have an advantage. That's number one. The second thing is an interesting principle of game, the effect of chaos in game. Chaos tremendously helps bad game and hurts good game. Okay? So if you take a guy who is not polarizing enough and not, let's just say, not to say not attractive enough, but not able to reliably convey attractive enough qualities to turn a girl on, like on purpose, repeatedly. He's just not that good at game. You put him in a crazy party environment, he may actually get results. You put him at Mardi Gras, all of a sudden the girls are aroused by the environment, the girls are in a chaotic, there's a lot of emotions running, and then that guy can just be at the right place at the right time and capitalize on those emotions, right? So the chaotic environment is helping the guy whose game is not good enough by itself to get him the girl. But if you do know how to systematically generate attraction, if you are the type of guy where the longer you're going to talk to the girl, the more she's going to like you, and once the girl's talking to you and liking you, you know how to plan it and be like, okay, let's go for a drink, let's go sit down, let's meet my friends, let's go to the next venue, and you have a structure and a plan, well, chaos is no longer helping you. Because now you have this nice structure, we're going to get a drink, we're going to do this, and then like a fight breaks out and you get like separated in the club and whatever, right? Or her friend, who was totally fine with you, starts puking, and then she has to take care of her friend, and now she can't go home with you, right? So it's really interesting because chaos is absolutely the friend of bad game and absolutely the enemy of good game, right? And so for me, I will take that less chaotic environment because I think that I can, in that lounge, reliably generate enough attraction and move it forward. Whereas a guy who doesn't have a lot of game, but is willing to get physical and just willing to be a bit bold, in that crazy dance club actually has a chance, right? But it's very interesting to think about when you think about the different styles of game. And I do encourage you guys to tailor what you do to what you're best at. If you're really, really good at day game and really, really bad at night game, you still should do a little bit of night game, but you should mostly do day game. You should mostly do what you're really good at. Do enough of the other thing to learn. Do enough of the other thing to grow and develop the specific skills, because you will learn skills in night game that you don't have in day game, right? You will learn, or you will be forced to learn, to deal with groups in night game. Whereas you could actually be successful at day game for life and have great relationships without ever approaching girls in a group. You literally could just wait around, find girls that are by themselves and whatever, and never learn groups. But if you did learn groups, now you have like 4 or 5 times as many girls you could talk to in day game all of a sudden. And oftentimes the hottest girls, and maybe the most socially in-demand girls especially, now those become available to you because they're usually in groups, they're usually not by themselves. So there is a very, very valid reason to learn that from night game. But yeah, if you suck at night game and are good at day game, and you enjoy day game and hate night game, maybe like 9 times out of 10 when you go out, do day game, right? It is absolutely completely fine to define your own path in terms of how you learn all this stuff.